so important to be in the right environment so you can prosper and become the best version of yourself.
Every time I've let you in, you've let me down.
Okay, today we are excited to have the man known as BLUblox, Andy Mant. Andy believes for every solution starts a problem. In our case, a set of problems. He could see instances of digital eye strain, fatigue, and poor sleep increasing across the world, and the rise of prescription drugs to combat these ailments was alarming. Being of a holistic yet scientific-based mindset, he embarked on months of research into what was causing these issues in modern society. Everything led back to blue light. Welcome, Andy. It's great to have you here. I know you've travelled down from Perth. For those that don't know you, and I've been wearing BLUblox for the last month and been called Elton John on many occasions. Tell us a little bit about BLUblox and about yourself and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's always great to speak to like-minded people and, get the message out there that, light needs to be managed in specific ways for optimal health and wellness. I got started on my journey probably maybe about 8 years ago. I was quite overweight, had really bad diets. All the conventional sort of government advice was no good to me. So I went and did my own research, found a diet that worked well for me to lose my weight. And then that led me on to, I guess, want to delve more deeper into the literature on other things to improve my life. And one thing that really wasn't good for me, even when I improved my diet, was my sleep, which led me to look at how, I guess, human physiology works and biology in relation to getting sleep and falling to sleep. And it all sort of led back to light and light management. So that was my initial foray into light management. And what I wanted to do was, I stumbled across blue light glasses by chance. Bought a cheap pair from Amazon, wore them, sleep improved a little bit. After a few weeks, it sort of went back to how it was, maybe a little bit of improvement. So when I was reading all these peer-reviewed clinical studies, I worked out a range that we needed to block after dark in terms of light frequencies to get the most optimal melatonin secretion and the best sleep possible. And then I was fortunate enough to have friends in an optics lab where they had these high-grade lab spectrometers to measure the frequencies of blue light glasses blocked. So I took my glasses in along with about 20 other pairs that I bought from various sources, got them to run them through their spectrometer, and then compared the results with what the literature was saying you had to block in each instance. And every single one of the glasses came back not blocking what they should be. So they were these cheap glasses made maybe overseas in China with sort of the advert that this will help improve your sleep, which they really weren't doing optimally. So I said to the guys in the lab, I said, if I paid you some money, would you be able to create lenses based on frequencies of light I'd like you to block? And they said, yeah, it's no problem. They developed these different tints, these 3 different tints. We put them in some really cool stylish frames that we managed to source ourselves in Australia. And then that's how BLUblox was born. And, light has to be managed in different ways throughout the day. And we can obviously come on to that as the conversation progresses. But, I guess my mantra is always, I don't want to just do what everyone else is doing, grab a product off Alibaba or somewhere like that, badge it up as BLUblox and sell it on. I want to create something that is going to be optimal. It's going to be the best in class. You might need to pay a premium for this, but if someone said to you, you can have 100% better sleep or 50% better sleep, you're always going to go for that 100% because sleep is so important for recovery, performance, health, well-being, and everything basically associated with our lives. So, that's why I created BLUblox, to really optimize light management. We've created the world's most optimal blue light glasses, along with a sleep mask that we've now introduced, and we're going to continue, down the route of actually bringing in more and more products related to light management, and ensure that each of those products is better than what is out there currently. So that's kind of, in very brief terms, where we sort of ended up founding BLUblox.
So, if we look at sleep and how important sleep is, and, when you look at creating the BLUblox glasses, you know, from an autophagy and apoptosis sort of path, making people understand exactly why sleep's important. Some people don't understand that. And cellular regeneration happens when you get a proper night's sleep. And obviously intermittent fasting. I get obviously asked a lot of questions, why do I wear the glasses? And sometimes it's very hard to explain it in just one conversation, in one passing conversation. How important is sleep in terms of recovery, chronic illnesses, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So sleep is, or sleep disruption, sleep deprivation. So just having like one bad night's sleep, for instance, is so common amongst everyone in the world these days because of various factors, not just light. But when you actually look at a lot of the chronic diseases that are out there, so things like neurological related diseases like anxiety, stress, depression, things like, I guess, sporting injuries can be in there as well, heart disease, diabetes, obesity. Every single one of those diseases is linked to something called a disrupted circadian rhythm. So inside every human being, every mammal, there is a body clock that is governed by external environmental cues. Now that body clock runs on a 24-hour period, and when it is synced to natural light and dark cycles, so this is artificial light aside, so synced to the rising sun, the setting sun, and darkness, hormones can regulate correctly, which then leads to a well-balanced physiological system, which then enables us to sleep, recover, perform higher in sort of the next day and the rest of your life. But when we disrupt that circadian rhythm, so we get light at the wrong times of the day, the hormones in our body become out of balance. You might have a reverse cortisol circadian cycle where it's not high in the morning, it's higher in the evening. This will then in turn disrupt your sleep. And then what you find is when you're not getting the clearance of damaged or dead cells from the body, you're going to be leaving a lot of, suboptimal machinery within your body. So you're not going to be able to perform better the next day. Now, with sleep, you get a lot of repair of something called mitochondria. So mitochondria is where adenosine triphosphate is produced. So ATP is for short. So what that does is that, takes food, takes light, takes whatever source goes into the body and turns that into energy. And you get from lack of sleep, you actually get a dysfunction to the mitochondria. So it can't then produce optimal amounts of energy. So if you're eating, say, what you perceive as a clean diet for whatever goals you want, maybe it's marathon running, maybe it's bodybuilding, if your mitochondria aren't functioning properly, you're not going to be able to produce enough energy from that food you're eating to then fuel the training that you're doing, or the growth, or even if it's the opposite way around, the weight loss and things like that. So you're putting a lot of energy into the system that then can't be turned into energy through ATP production, which then leads to things like, faulty pathways in the metabolic processes in your body, which can lead to then mitochondrial diseases, the ones that I've maybe just described, cancer probably included in that as well. But what sleep also does is when we burn energy through metabolic processes, now it could just be us talking now, breathing, it could be training really hard in the gym. The byproduct of ATP is something called adenosine. Now what that does is that builds up in the brain when we run processes in our bodies. And when adenosine builds up in the brain over time during a day, we get something developed called sleep pressure. And the sleep pressure is the need to sleep. So there's two types of way to fall asleep. There's the buildup of adenosine, which is the byproduct from metabolic processes, which forces us to sleep. But this coincides and runs parallel to light-dark cycles. So if one of those is amiss, then you're going to have a problem sleeping. Now, what sleep does is, when you mentioned autophagy and apoptosis, those processes actually clear the adenosine from the brain, which enables us to not have neurological diseases, have good restorative sleep, and then feel ready to produce more ATP the next day, and then the process starts again. But if we're not sleeping correctly, which could be a number of things, it could be training too late and being pumped up in the evenings, it could be exposing yourself to the wrong type of light after dark, we're going to disrupt the deep and REM sleep that clears that adenosine from the brain. So it's going to be less, you're going to be feeling maybe the next morning a bit groggy, a bit like, maybe you've had too many pints the night before and you wake up feeling a bit hungover. You're going to get that feeling like every day, just that sort of inability to get yourself going. And that then will relate in poor performance in the gym. And it's just this vicious cycle that over time just continues to get worse and worse and worse. And people it's very much like diets. If people are on a really shoddy diet right now, they'll be like, yeah, I can feel fine. I can lift weights. I look okay. It's not too bad. And it's like, well, come back to us in 20 years time when you've got diabetes, heart disease, stroke, or, you're feeling like shit. The same is true for sleep. People might be able to get by on it, very little of it when they're young. I mean, just look at maybe when we were all perhaps in our teens and early 20s, like I could go out and go on the beers for probably 3 nights in a row and then, then wake up the next day and be like, right, yes, get back on it, not a problem. Whereas now we can't, because over time, that's probably in my 20s destroyed my ability to do that. The same's true for sleep. It's, something that will catch up with us later in life. And then it's too late for people. So you need to take that action now. And whether you have symptoms of, poor sleep now, which again, we can talk about later because there's so many of them, whether or not you've got that, you need to take this seriously now, because at the end of the day, sleep is what governs mitochondrial function, and mitochondrial function, is what governs whether we're going to be living a healthy life or an unhealthy life.
And then the mitochondria is really the power cell, really powers everything. When I look at, the chronic illnesses that we deal with the most, we run challenges and, I've been in the fitness industry for many, many years. The thing that I'm seeing that's on the rise more than anything is anxiety and depression, and especially in young people. And they're obviously exposed to phones and tablets more than the elderly. What can we do for them, and what are the protocols that they should be doing? I think they probably need BLUblox glasses even more than the average person.
Yeah, for 2 reasons we're seeing an increase from a light perspective in anxiety and depression, because I'm sure there's other things like social pressures and living through social media that can lead to these types of things. But from a light perspective, which I guess is where a lot of my research is conducted in, there's 2 things that happens with artificial blue light exposure to cause anxiety and depression. The first one is by overloading yourself with too much blue light in the absence of the other spectrum of colors. So before I go on to that, I'll just explain that the 2 sources of light are the sun and artificial light. So artificial light is things from like your laptop, your phone, the lights that are above us right now, car headlights, TVs, etc. That's very high in blue light and very low in all the other colors of the spectrum. Artificial sunlight, is very high in blue light, but it's also very high in red, amber, oranges. And blue light is good during the day because it makes you feel alert and awake, but too much of it can damage your eyes, it can damage your mitochondria. And the same is true if you're out in the sun. Blue light will still do that. But what the sun has that is different from the artificial blue light is it has a lot of red light in it. Yeah. And it's that red light in the sun that counteracts that blue light and causes the cells to repair. So you might get some cell damage from the blue in your eyes and skin when you're outside, but the red, whilst being outside, will counteract that and repair it. So in relation to anxiety, without having that red light and repair mechanism, we're getting bombarded by blue light constantly. And if we don't have natural light passing through our eyes, telling our body clocks and cortisol clocks what time of day it is, you'll see 2 things that can happen. You'll see cortisol levels go up and down like a yo-yo. Yeah. Or you will see cortisol cycle switch, whereby you're not getting the cortisol awakening response in the morning, which is what you need to jump out of bed, make yourself feel alert. You're not getting that in the morning, so you're waking up like can't get out of bed. But then in the evenings, your cortisol level's spiking, which means melatonin can't be produced. You can't sleep, and it's that lack of sleep that causes things like the anxiety and depression that we were talking about. And another mechanism involving light that can lead to anxiety and depression is the abuse of dopamine. Yep. So dopamine networks and the neurotransmitters in the brain are in that sort of reward system. So whether you have sex, whether you eat chocolate, whether you take cocaine, whatever you're doing, will trigger dopamine to be released, which makes you feel amazing, makes you feel really good. What happens with any hormone is if you repeatedly raise and fall that, over sort of an unnatural time frame, you will become resistant to that. So you constantly need more and more of that dopamine hit to make you feel good. And this is very true with artificial light within digital devices and TVs and things like that, smartphones and your laptop, is that over time you become so addicted to it that you find you're just reaching for your phone, scrolling through your phone, and you're wondering, what am I doing? You know, it's because you're getting a hit of dopamine by looking through that. And over time, that will destroy those networks and pathways. So you're constantly looking for more and more hits on that blue light to get that same reward. The same is true like with any hormone. I mean, from a nutrition point of view, if you look at it with insulin, like for instance, if you're smashing a load of carbohydrates, over time you can lead to something, you know, called insulin resistance, and that's again the resistance of that hormone. And the same is true for dopamine and melatonin and anything, any other hormone that's produced in the body can be abused. So you just got to be careful, I guess, with the blue light, that you're not continually increasing that dopamine level. And yes, the glasses will definitely mitigate against that because it blocks that blue, and it's the blue specifically that raises dopamine. So wearing the yellow glasses that we're wearing now during the day is going to stop that happening. But what you and I will do, Mets, is we'll go outside a lot during the day. We'll take our glasses off and we'll allow proper natural sunlight to hit our eyes, which will just be the natural dopamine response. It's not bombarded with blue. You've got all the other frequencies in there that will balance out the other hormones and not cause you to feel anxious and stressed. And another thing that the light side of things, artificial light doesn't increase serotonin levels. There's a lot of real complex, I guess, quantum biological principles involved in the creation of serotonin, but ultimately for this chat now, we can assume that the sun can only do that. It can only increase serotonin levels. And serotonin is produced in the gut. Again, it makes you feel good and happy and you know, really good feelings of well-being. But you also need that later on in the night as well to produce melatonin. But, you know, you're not going to get that serotonin hit as well by looking at artificial devices. So, you know, it's that two-pronged attack of, right, you need to protect yourself from artificial blue light. That's why we wear the glasses. But you also need to be outside as well, because it's all very well maybe sitting in this room where we've got some really bad artificial light here and here and here. We're protecting our eyes now. But if we don't go outside and then get that natural light, we might as well not be wearing these glasses. It's only part of the equation, I think, and the solution.
Part of the solution.
But yeah, a really important one for sure.
So let's go back to what would a day look like for you if you were to have the perfect balance of getting the right light in, the right sleep in, and obviously using your glasses, because they all play a role. You can't just get the glasses, have a bad diet and think everything's going to be all right. Because a lot of people might be thinking that, you know, if I get the glasses, I'm going to be fine. But there's so many more factors that come into play in order to get the right sleep, get the right recovery, be in the right mindset, not have the anxiety that people are dealing with now because they're not getting all the fundamentals right in order to optimize their life.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, your day needs to be centered around light management, both natural and artificial. So I guess the perfect day would obviously be one where you wouldn't be inside under artificial light at all, but it's just not practical.
Yes. Yeah.
So we got to look at sort of practicalities and how, I guess, the everyday person can implement these strategies without really disrupting their life too much. And there's a lot of really easy hacks to do. And I think a good start to everyone's day is watching the sunrise. So as soon as you wake up, or if you can't wake up with the sunrise, initially set your alarm for when the sun is going to rise and get yourself outside. Doesn't matter if it's windy, raining, sunny, whatever, get yourself outside, because the biggest entrainer of our circadian rhythms is the rising sun. So what that does is the rising sun and the frequencies of light that are present at that time of the day passes through the eyes, hits the suprachiasmatic nucleus where the central master clock is located, and it basically says, right, start the stopwatch. Let's go. This is our 24-hour rhythm. Let's get it going. If we don't watch the sunlight sunrise in the morning and we roll over in bed, we look at our smartphone or we switch on a light, that light that's present in those devices is equivalent to solar noon. So basically you're setting your body clock from solar noon if you're not watching the sunrise and you're looking at your phone in the morning. So immediately your circadian rhythm for that day and your hormones are completely out of whack. So you're going to have a phase shifting occur where you won't sleep later on in the day, or you'll crash earlier in the day, depending on your body sort of type, what you're eating, and other things like that. So the rising sun is so important for that reason. Now, after that, it's fine. You can go in, put your blue light glasses on, so like a yellow or a clear lens.
Which one's better?
Yellow.
Yellow's better.
Yeah, a lot better. Yellow are for the serious sort of biohackers that really want to manage the light.
It helps me a lot when I look at the screen, because I do have sensitive eyes. I've had a laser treatment.
Yeah.
So I know even this morning when I was on the computer, I put my glasses on. It made me feel a lot better. Yeah. Obviously, I took them straight off, got back in the sun, and I felt like I got what I needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yellow is better.
Yellow is better, yeah. Now, the reason we have clear glasses as well is that in some professions, people can't go in wearing yellow glasses. Like if you're going on business meetings, working in the city, it might be, you might be able to get away with it, but you might not feel comfortable. Who you are. Yeah, exactly. So they do filter blue light, and they will help against digital eye strain, and macular degeneration, headaches, things like that. But if you're suffering from, say, migraines, or have a light sensitivity, so maybe you get feelings of anxiety, stress easily, maybe trouble sleeping later in the day, yellows are probably the better ones for you there. Yeah, they just sort of target some of the more nastier frequencies a lot heavier than the clears. Yeah. Not to say the clears don't do anything, they do. It's just if you don't have any of those sensitivities, or you have to for some reason only wear clear glasses and not coloured lenses, then they're the ones for you. Yeah. So they do equally as well. But yeah, if you've watched the sunrise and then you're going in and using or exposed to any kind of artificial light, so we're not just talking about your phone or your laptop or your TV. This is like house lighting.
Lights, everything.
Yeah, everything. Your fridge has your appliances, everything. So you want to be wearing the glasses then, and just taking them off every time you go outside. And the reason you want to do that is you don't want the frequencies of artificial light in their crude format, unfiltered from your BLUblox lenses, going in through the same pathway that the sun did, and then telling it it's a different time, because then your hormones are going to be all over the place again. So you've watched the sunrise, you're back inside getting ready, your glasses are on. Then what you want to do is, if you're obviously in an office, you continue to wear your glasses. There's some hacks you can put on your digital devices to help reduce some of the blue light down. Yeah,
you were talking about that on one of your podcasts. So we'll put that in the show notes. But there is hacks that you can do on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can take some of the blue out of your phone, take some of the blue out of your laptop, which helps, to a certain degree, take down some of the blue that's in all the different sort of sources in your office. You can't do that with your lights unless you put red lights in, but that's not going to happen in an office. So you still need the glasses. Now, the second most important time to be outside during the day is solar noon. So I typically say this is really easy for people to do, because people's lunch breaks can be from, say, 12 or 1 o'clock typically in a 9 to 5 job. So just take your lunch outside, or eat your lunch at your desk, but take the hour to go for a walk and just be outside without any sunglasses on, with as little clothing as you can practically do, if whether in a city, maybe change into your gym gear and go for a walk. Try and ground yourself as well if you can, like walk barefoot. Those are other sort of benefits as well that are unlight related, but will have huge benefits from a health standpoint. And the reason you want to go outside during solar noon is that's another point during the day when more messages can pass through your eyes and tell your body there's a specific time of the day. Hormones can be suppressed and secreted at that time of the day. You go back into the office, glasses back on, and then you want to be watching the sunset if you can. It's not as important as a sunrise, but it's still very important. So what happens at sunset is that you get a very, very rapid rise of blue light, which peaks to the highest point that you'll find it during the day.
Yep.
No one really knows this.
Wow.
And we've tested it with our spectrometer that you can see in that video. People just seem to think, it's all red and orange light at sunset. Yeah, it is post-sunset, but you get a decrescendo effect that when you see that sun set, the blue spikes massively, then it almost drops to nothing. And it's that quick spike that tells your body, nighttime's coming. Yeah. That's the light signal that passes through your eyes. Nighttime's coming. Let's reduce cortisol. Let's start thinking about producing melatonin and relaxing. Yeah. And you should always watch the sunset all the way through, because after the sunset, you get the reds, the oranges, the near infrareds that come from that and really restore any damage that's happened to your skin and body during the day. So yes, sleep will do that later on in the day, but the sunrise with all those colours will cure anything that, say, has happened during the day. So, for instance, a big one that comes out is UV light, especially in Australia. UV light is great for synthesizing with cholesterol to form vitamin D in the skin and is absolutely essential for optimal health. People who have low vitamin D have an increase in all-cause mortality. It's fact. Now, what UV light does if you get too much exposure or you get inappropriate exposure of UV light, and that's probably a whole nother conversation of how to manage UV light, you're always going to get some skin damage during the day. Now, what people do is they go out, maybe sunbake for a couple of hours, then they go back inside and miss out on all the restorative sunset colors that are going to restore any of that damage that's happened during the day from UV light, from pollutants, from artificial light hitting your skin. It was actually quite interesting a few weeks ago. A study came out showing that the skin has its own body clock, independent of the master clock, that is in an active phase when it's light, but then needs darkness to recover. So we're going out sunbaking during the day, maybe getting a bit sunburnt, not watching the sunset in the evening, going and switching on your artificial lights, and it's sending messages to your skin, independent of whether you're wearing the glasses or not, saying it's daytime, I don't need to repair any of this damage. So, UV light might be what's causing the damage, but artificial light is not allowing us to, and sunsets are not allowing us to repair that damage, which is then ultimately leading to increased skin cancer rates. So a lot of people summarize it wrong by saying, blue light's causing the skin cancer. But it's probably a combination of two. Too much inappropriate UV exposure, but not enough time for the skin to repair itself in the absence of blue and green light. So after the sun set and you've seen these reds and oranges, you want to be wearing red lenses. You want to be blocking and filtering different frequencies of light at different times of the day. So after dark, it's very clear in the literature, you need to block 100% of light between 400 and 550 nanometers. That's 100% of blue and almost all of the green side of the spectrum. Your brain is very clever in your body clock, okay? So whether you show it a tiny little speck of 1% of within that frequency, it's still going to tell your brain, it's the daytime, don't need to produce melatonin. So this is why I tested these other glasses, and there's a couple of brands you mentioned earlier that are really big brands that don't even block anywhere near 100% in that range. So you're leaving all this sort of light to pass through your eyes, which is, you might as well not wear any glasses. It's going to still tell you over time that this is the daytime. We don't need to sleep. So it's really important that, if you're going to buy from BLUblox or if you're going to buy from another company that claims to block in that range, you see test results that show this, like independent lab tested spectrum results that show you're blocking this amount of light. And removing that light creates something called physiological darkness, which completely switches off cortisol, and then it increases melatonin. Now, melatonin is a two-pronged hormone that its primary goal is to help you get into deep and REM sleep, which is essential for autophagy and apoptosis, which obviously increases performance and health in the long run. But it's also the most powerful antioxidant known to man. And it is actually a free radical and a reactive oxygen species scavenger.
Wow. So
we want to produce as much as we can. And it sort of rings true then that it is produced after dark when we sleep, because you mentioned earlier, Mets, that we want the sleep for the autophagy and apoptosis, which is what melatonin does. So the higher your melatonin level, the more clearance of dead and damaged cells, the more sort of scavenging of the free radicals, the less inflammation you're going to get, and the more healthier you are going to be inside. And then there comes sleep. So you've worn your blue light glasses, your red lenses 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed. You've also got to make sure you're sleeping completely blacked out as well.
Yes.
So you've got two hacks here. You can wear a 100% light blocking sleep mask, or you can wear...
You've got that.
We've got that, yeah. It's called Remedy.
Yeah.
So that's really...
So I want to get that as well.
Yeah.
Because I want to look at, by bringing those other hacks into it, by using the red light and then obviously the masks, see where my REM sleep and my deep sleep is. See if I can get my score to, the 95 and above.
Yeah, and you absolutely will. Wearing a blackout sleep mask in one study showed that there was a 22% increase in REM sleep when combined with using earplugs as well.
Wow. And
that was in humans. So, there's definitely some science behind that there. The interesting thing about sleeping is that even if your eyes are closed and you're not wearing a sleep mask, and it's got to be 100% light blocking. It can't place pressure on your eyes or you're going to get issues, eye pressure.
Your one's
100%, yeah. 100% light blocking and 0 eye pressure. So what problems you're going to have is it's very clear from the literature that independent of the food you eat, if you're exposed to blue light after dark and whilst you sleep, so that's it hitting your skin or hitting your eyes, your blood glucose levels are going to be higher than what they would be if that blue light wasn't present. Yeah. So there's been studies out there that have shown that people that are sleeping at night basically had some light shone on them for, I think, about 5 minutes. And they woke up and had higher levels, I think it was 50% higher levels than baseline of what they went into the trial with, of higher insulin resistance, just from one night of light exposure whilst they slept, maybe 5-10 minutes. We don't know the mechanisms of why that happens, but obviously light is a governor of hormones and it can trigger insulin release. So can Wi-Fi, so can being near a microwave. It's been scientifically proven. So another thing that it can do if you're allowing light, so what we're not saying sleeping with the light on here, we're saying maybe your partner gets up in the night and uses the bathroom and there's a little tiny bit of light. Maybe a car drives past headlights, maybe neighbour's car, neighbour's house, maybe it's the street lamp shining in, maybe it's just your phone flashing or something, or a burglar alarm in the top corner of your house. That can switch off melatonin production as well, and melatonin production peaks at 2 a.m. So you need that 100% like blackness to sleep in.
2 a.m.
2 a.m. is when it peaks the most.
Yes.
So you need to be asleep, completely blacked out all the way through the night.
I knew it was an important hormone, but I didn't realise just how important it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people tend to want to go for the easy way out and supplement with melatonin.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm really against it unless you've got a problem actually producing it naturally.
Yeah.
And the reason being is, and I'll caveat this first one, that the studies were only done in mice. But over time of using melatonin supplementation in mice, it led to a thinning of their retina, which is an issue. Yeah. So not saying that can happen in humans, but typically mouse studies come out first, then human trials will happen after that. The other thing that concerns me with supplementing an exogenous hormone is, number one, it's a hormone, it's produced naturally in the body, and it's governed by light. So why would you want to take something exogenally in a pill form when you can produce it optimally in the body through light management? Now, as we mentioned earlier, melatonin can only be produced in the absence of blue and green light between 400 and 550 nanometers. So if you're taking melatonin supplementation under blue light, that's not going to end well, because that's not how that hormone is produced. You're basically putting a hormone into your body in an environment that it cannot be produced in naturally. That's going to lead to problems, real bad problems. I guess the caveat could perhaps be that you would take it in pitch darkness or wearing your BLUblox covering your skin up. Maybe that's the caveat. But what we've also got to remember is the homeostatic nature of the human system will produce as much or as little as a hormone as it sees fit, based on the environment that it's in terms of, I guess, light and temperature and things like that. If we're taking melatonin supplementation, how do we know how much our body needs of that supplementation? Sure. We could be taking too much, and there's always too much of a good thing. Yes, it's a powerful antioxidant, but so are blueberries, but I don't live off only blueberries. I'll eat a few of them. And the same true of melatonin. I think that you've got to be very careful with dosage of any hormone, because if you increase the dose and sort of take too much or too little of that hormone, what impact is that going to have on the rest of the endocrine system in your body? Is that going to affect cortisol? Because cortisol and melatonin cycle in a complete opposite pattern in a healthy individual. So if we're taking too much melatonin under the wrong conditions, is that going to screw up our cortisol system? So these are all questions that I'd be asking myself before supplementing on melatonin. It seems to work well in one instance, and that's if you're flying long distances. Yeah. But again, that's not taking it every night to try and help you sleep. It's like, people maybe trying to take a sleeping pill to see them off to sleep. So that's probably my thoughts on supplementation.
Yeah. When I look at performance, you look at sports, you look at working environment, and you're looking at how to get the most out of whether it be sport, whether it be your team members, and you've got a business and you're a CEO, you want to get the most out of them. Obviously, when you look at sports itself, they're under a lot of strain, a lot of pressure. They're playing at 100%. They're pushing themselves way beyond where the body can go and the mind has to take over. So they'd have a lot of issues sleeping. Obviously, there's hacks for that, and BLUblox can obviously assist in that. How important is it for sporting teams to adopt it? And have you had any sporting teams come on board?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a few. I'll mention a few of them shortly, but I think there's two facets to athletic performance and sleep. Okay, and the first one is physical performance. So you look at some of the studies that have been done in I guess powerlifters, in sprinters, and in endurance athletes. You'll find that one night of sleep deprivation, so not being able to sleep properly and get good restorative sleep, in every study seems to be between about 10 and about 14% decrease in output the next day in their training. So that's a major issue, and that's, again, scientifically backed. Another scientifically backed facet is cognitive function. So when you're an elite level performer, it's like you were suggesting there, it's not all about, it's all about pushing your body to a certain extent for, as far as you can get it, but then the mind takes over. So if you're getting really bad sleep and your cognitive function declines, and this has been shown in many studies, not just in elite athletes, that people who do tests the next day, like numerical testing, that have had bad night's sleep, they typically score a lot less than they would if they had a good night's sleep. And it all coincides to the adenosine clear out. If you're not having a good night's sleep and you're not clearing out the waste products, you're going to have that brain fog, that, the mental cognition isn't going to be as strong as it would be if all that's cleared out and it's fresh and ready to go. So it's very important from, I guess, a tactical viewpoint as well, that, you're relaying to these athletes in a lot of team sports, a lot of complex tactics and instructions. And if their brain isn't right to be able to absorb that, then you're not going to get the best mentally out of them on the field the next day in a game or in training. So we've worked with quite a few sports teams, sort of most notably from Australia, the Socceroos we've worked with. They were the first team we partnered with. So we were approached by their chief sports scientist, a guy called Dr. Nick Jones. And they wanted to utilize our technology to help manage jet lag for their 2018 World Cup qualifiers with Honduras. So they had to fly the 23-man squad from Sydney via Honolulu into Honduras for the first leg. So what they did was they, on that first leg from Sydney to Honolulu, they didn't wear any blue light glasses because they wanted to keep them awake. And then from Honolulu, they put on BLUblox glasses and then flew to Honduras, which then synced their circadian rhythm to that time zone, okay, because it was so powerful to manage light with these glasses. And then they did the reverse on the way back to Sydney. Ultimately, they qualified for the World Cup, and the feedback we had afterwards was that I think it was something like 70% of the squad took the glasses with them because they wanted to use them in their club competitions as well when they went back to Europe and Australia to play in their respective leagues, which was fantastic. We also have the majority of Rangers Football Club, the most successful football club in the world, actually, Rangers, believe it or not. They wear our sleep glasses as well. They've gone down a treat. I guess from the soccer standpoint as well, the most sort of high-profile person we have wearing our glasses is Jordan Henderson, who's the captain of Liverpool Football Club, currently top of the EPL, capped by England about 50 times.
Looking to go watch a match there in Liverpool in April.
Oh,
do you go for Liverpool yourself? No,
I'm a Newcastle fan, unfortunately.
Okay.
But nobody from there
good to know.
That's all right. Newcastle's okay.
Yeah, we're all right. We're just a neutral. We don't offend anyone. We don't win anything, so we're okay. And then
what was his results? What's his results been like with them on?
Yeah, he's felt like he's had more energy, greater output himself and better sleep. And what Jordan was saying was that I guess a lot of the issues that footballers face, and to be fair, Nick Jones has said this as well for the Socceroos, that it's their idea of switching off is coming home and firing up the Xbox and playing a bit of FIFA or Call of Duty or something.
And more blue light.
Yeah, so they're just smashing blue light after training. They've been outside during the day, fantastic, but then they can't switch off because they're getting the adrenaline, the dopamine, the cortisol levels high. But they don't want to quit playing that because they like to play their game. So they wear the glasses and they can only do 2 or 3 hours of that, and then they're in bed sleeping. So, and it's also good for jet lag for them as well, which is great. But in terms of other sports, we've had a few people that are not so famous but are pretty big in their sports, like sort of snow sports, wear them as well when they're unwinding. Bodybuilders, I guess Chris Gethin, Roger Snipes, Ben Pakulski all wear BLUblox when they're training and also after dark as well. We've had Carl Dake, who's a 2 times world champion wrestler in the US, wear them as well and swear by them. So we've had quite a lot of elite athletes that want to wear these, and they all swear by them, and they're all still wearing them, you know, maybe a year, 18 months after they bought them as well. So, you know, it's definitely an area we're doing a lot more in. It's quite a difficult one, sports, because a lot of the elite athletes have sponsorship deals.
Sure.
So we can only talk about a few of them that are wearing them, but there are more people, high profile people, that wear our glasses, but because they've got deals with Adidas, Nike, and
we'll have to talk about
you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
You can't say they wear them. So, and we can't get pictures of them wearing them. But yeah, it's really big in the sporting world, and, you know, bodybuilding definitely as well, because they were the first real true biohackers. They, you know, changed their biology through eating specific ways, taking performance enhancing drugs in some instances to change their biology to get to a certain sort of physique. And now we're seeing the bodybuilders go, well, you know what, maybe we did this without any regard to our health. So we want to now, you know, look to reverse that, or look to train in a more sensible, healthy, holistic way. And a lot of them turn to us as well, as along with some other companies out there in the biohacking space that look to increase performance, but also keep their mitochondria healthy. And if you keep your mitochondria healthy, your longevity and disease-free tenure of your life will increase.
Yeah. I've heard you on previous podcasts talking about you do intermittent fasting the opposite way. You have a big meal in the morning, and then you finish your last meal a lot earlier on.
Yes.
So that way you're really optimizing your REM and your deep sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
How important is that? Because obviously as bodybuilders, we're taught to eat all the way through, even get up at night and have a protein shake or have some egg whites just so that we stay anabolic. But, you know, now we're seeing that even though, you know, that did work, it didn't help with obviously getting the recovery through sleep.
Yep.
And as you said before, as you keep getting older, you pay the price later on. Now, how important is it to get your meal timing and frequency right?
Absolutely. So it's important from a few different areas. So first of all, we've touched upon circadian rhythms from being governed by light. Okay, and light is the trigger to your master clock. But in every cell in our body, we have all these little peripheral clocks, peripheral oscillators they're called, and they all run independent of the master clock. So the master clock, I guess in layman's terms, is like a conductor of a massive orchestra of clocks in the body. And if the conductor's not conducting, then the whole orchestra is going to be off. So you have to entrain that clock through light, that master clock. But it's the other way around. The conductor can be conducting, but you might have another clock, say in the liver or the kidney or the skin, that isn't functioning properly. And you know what happens if you listen to an orchestra and one of the violins is off? It's going to sound like shit.
That's right.
And that's how our body will be if it's not all in sync. So when you look at some of the peripheral clocks, the clock found in the liver, for instance, and the pancreas, so what secretes insulin, is governed by food and meal timing. So when you actually look at in training all your clocks at the same time, you want to be eating your biggest meal at the beginning of the day. So eat your, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper is an old wives' sort of saying that really reigns true. So you want to be putting that huge amount of calories into your body in the morning within 4 hours of waking, so not first thing. Typically about 4 hours after you wake is probably better, because I guess the literature has shown that 4 hours after the cortisol awakening response is the best time to eat. You don't really want to be eating when your cortisol levels are through the roof. So we want to entrain, watching the sunset, entraining the master clock, but also eating to entrain the peripheral clocks in the liver and pancreas at that same time. And the same's true for the skeletal muscle clock as well. You ideally want to be training that in the morning as well to sync that in line with the rest of the clocks as well. We've seen loads of studies, and we've seen people like Menno Henselmans talk about optimal time for muscle building is probably in the afternoon, because that's when we're most anabolic. But the research that I've done is centered around testosterone, and testosterone levels in men are the most highest at 7 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. So yes, Menno's found some great studies that show you can build muscle at that time of the day more optimally in the morning. But when you actually look at some of the other studies that he's left out of his work, you can actually see that people can build muscle just as well in the morning than they can at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's weighing up, I think, with training and eating before bed, like what do you want? What's your goal? Like if you want to pack on muscle and you don't give a shit about your health, then eat a massive dinner before you go to bed. And if you think that's going to give you loads of gains, then do it. And you're getting the gains, do it. That's completely up to you. But if you want longevity and you want to enjoy the amazing physique that you've built for longer, then you probably don't want to have that after dark as well, because it's going to impact your sleep from a digestion standpoint. So, I mean, you could talk about this for ages because it really depends on what you eat as well.
That's right.
So if you're eating a meal after dark, you're going to have higher levels of insulin after dark anyway, because you're going to be eating your food under blue light. So that's a first issue. Second issue is its digestion impairs the body's, I guess, energy pathways into repair and autophagy and apoptosis. Like, for instance, if you're fasting, because you haven't got food in your body, you're going into that autophagy and apoptosis state. If you eat before bed and you're digesting, you're going to have less time for your growth and repair whilst you sleep, which is really important if you're training hard. Now, Chris Masterjohn says it really well, and different types of food cause different responses in the brain in terms of the awakening response and the non-awakening response is the most sort of non-technical term for it. If you're eating a meal high in fat before you go to bed, sort of fat and protein combined, that's going to take longer to digest, and it also triggers the awakening response in the brain as well. So it's going to keep you awake. You're going to have a hard time going to sleep, and it triggers that response because it wants to keep you awake to digest that food first before going to bed. Whereas if you eat a meal before bed and you insist on eating a meal before bed, which I simply wouldn't do for circadian health perspective, then you want to look at foods that cause a non-awakening response, which is a small amount of protein, but carbohydrate, but fast-acting carbohydrates, okay? That doesn't cause an awakening response in people when they eat them after dark. So, maybe you want to take a little bit of dextrose or casein protein together as a light meal before you go to bed, if that's what you wanted to do. I mean, studies have shown both sides of things. They've shown that people that have a meal before they go to bed increases muscle gains. But I've also seen studies that show that those that don't take a meal before bed and stop eating at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon have the same amount of gains as someone the next day. The issue you've got with bodybuilding and trying to get a specific physique is that everyone's different and everyone's circadian rhythm is different. People might have good gains by taking a meal before they go to bed because their circadian rhythm's so screwed that the body thinks it's the daytime anyway. And it will process that food differently. But I would completely stand by the next statement that if someone in the bodybuilding world was eating big meals before they went to bed, give them 20, 25 years and they will feel the effects of that in their health. And I don't think that it's any surprise that when you look at people that are gaining a lot of muscle from bodybuilding, and this might be down to steroids as well in some instances, and probably a lot of other practices as well, is their longevity isn't very good. A lot of bodybuilders die quite young, in their 60s and 70s. Maybe 70s, which isn't good. So, you've really got to look at the way, naturally that you can sort of increase your longevity while still getting your aesthetic goals as well. And it's definitely possible, but it might be that you're leaving some gains on the table in exchange for maybe an extra 10, 15 years of your life. And I'm not talking 10, 15 years of your life sat in an armchair somewhere. I'm saying 10, 15 years of your life where you can still be down the gym, working out, being active, because your mitochondria are so healthy because of the amazing sleep and recovery that you've been getting. So, bodybuilders that are perhaps using performance enhancing drugs to get to a certain size because they want to be the elite in their field, they're not going to care about health because their number one goal is to get to a certain size, get to a certain aesthetic. Whereas those that, aren't too fussed on being sort of the size of a Ronnie Coleman or someone like that, can still get some really good gains, but they can also ensure that they're going to be on this planet for longer to, enjoy life.
Yeah, that's right. I want to move on to, obviously, at our gym, we have a lot of shift workers. We've got people that work on the wharves. We've got people that are nurses, doctors, and obviously they work around the clock. What can they do? Because obviously they're going against the circadian rhythm there. What can they do to optimize their health and their sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first things first is that regardless of what hacks night shift workers do, they're on a pathway to disease regardless. Okay, it's going to happen. There's no two ways about it. You can just prolong the inevitable by hacking, but ultimately they're going to have major issues. And you can see it already. You can see every single study that comes out on nurses, hospital workers, for instance, shift workers that work maybe on the roads at night. They all-cause mortality goes through the roof. So, the heart attack, stroke, diabetes, through the roof regardless, because they're completely reversing their circadian rhythms. Their hormones are all over the place. They're getting no sunlight to have repair or, the proper circadian messages through the brain, and they're sleeping when they should be awake ultimately. So it's sad because most of the night shift workers have such amazing jobs helping other people.
Of course. I mean, the nurses, the doctors that are in hospitals,
which is really sad. So that there are some protocols that they can put in place. Basically, during their shift, they need to be wearing at least the yellow blue light glasses, summer glow, because the light after dark is so intense, it's so fluorescent, it's just going to destroy their eyes. What they also need to do after their shift is they need to get home, but they need to be outside. So they are going to be exposing themselves to high levels of internal inflammation during their working period, because the body is not used to handling it during the night sort of phase of the circadian rhythm, but also because of the intense amount of blue light. So they need to look at protocols that don't just involve light. So first of all, involving light, they need to be outside. As soon as they're home, get outside. Don't care what time of the day it is. The worst thing you can do as a night shift worker is finish your shift and go straight to bed. Get outside, get some sunlight in you, and you'll feel a lot better. Now, then what you want to do is you want to ground yourself. So you want to be having your shoes and socks off, and you want to be walking on the barefoot on the grass. What that does is that helps the body absorb the DC electric current that's coming from the earth, and our bodies run on a DC electric current. So what a DC electric current can do, you can get it in two ways, from grounding and from sunlight hitting your eyes and synthesizing with something called DHA in the eye, which you normally get from fish, and then creates a DC electric current, and that charges mitochondria. So any inflammation that's occurred in the mitochondria will be fixed by increasing DC electric current levels in the body. So you can get that, like I said, from grounding, barefoot on the earth, and from sunlight through the eyes, but also maintaining a diet that's quite high in fish. Then also what you want to do, if you can stomach it, is cold thermogenesis, to reduce that inflammation that's gonna, because you're gonna have your skin exposed all your shift to artificial light. And you want to bring that inflammation level down, and that can be done by ice baths, cold showers. So I would recommend doing that as well. And once you've done those three things, get your red blue light blocking glasses on, wear those for 2 or 3 hours, and then you want to ensure your room is 100% light blocked. So for a night shift worker, it's essential to wear Remedy sleep mask, but also probably get 100% blackout curtains as well. I would recommend.
So do the both.
I would
do
the
Remedy
both.
and block it.
The reason being is that at night you're going to get maybe a few ambient sources of light pass through your bedroom. During the day, the sun's going to be so bright, there's going to be so much light shining in through that window, your skin is going to pick up on it. It doesn't matter if your eyes are covered, your skin will pick up on it. So you need to make sure you're 100% blackout in there.
Because you've got photoreceptors in your skin and your ears. So you're trying to block out as much as you possibly can if you're a shift worker.
100%. Yeah, you really have to. But just because there's more of it to block, you can get away with it at night to a certain degree as long as your eyes are covered. But, when the sun's shining during the day and you need to sleep, you need to simulate the middle of the night as much as possible to tell your brain to reduce that cortisol, to increase that melatonin. So that's essential. And you just need to make sure as well that during the day, typically temperatures will be higher, especially in Australia. So you've got to ensure your room is cool. Okay, so you want to mimic what the nighttime temperature will be in wherever you are. might be a little bit difficult in the northern hemisphere when it's like minus something, but typically in the summer, maybe 16 to 20 degrees, you want to have your room. And that will help you get into a better sleep. You can buy something called a chili pad as well that can go on your bed, and you can regulate the temperature. I think that's probably good to do as well. You can also ground your bed whilst you sleep if you want to take it to the extreme level, which can help more DC electric current come through you whilst you sleep.
Ground your bed outside?
Yes.
Oh, really? Wow.
So you have your bed indoors, but you would run a cable that's attached to your bed out of your window and then onto the grass outside, and that will ground your bed. And that will ensure more DC electric current as you sleep. Depends how extreme you want to go with it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the most extremist person. Yeah. I'd actually like to see someone do that, that's doing the shift work, and just see what their results are like, because their output might be even better at work. They might even feel better. They might be happier. Yeah. Because, obviously when your circadian rhythm and everything's out, most of the time those people are going to probably suffer from anxiety, depression, not seeing all that. But if they can hack those and do all those hacks that you just mentioned, which we'll put in the show notes, because I reckon that's going to be extremely important for people that are shift workers. It's probably going to change their outlook on life as well. Thinking, you know what, this isn't so bad, and I guarantee if they do all those, they're going to feel maybe 100% better than they are. Like, because I'm sure they're not even doing one of those. Yeah. And if they'd done all the combination of that, they probably wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will see massive improvements. They still need to look at, in my opinion, at getting out of shift work if they can, but they can still make massive improvements. Another thing they need to do as well, and another thing that we all need to do is drop caffeine.
Yes.
Caffeine it raises adrenaline too much for my liking.
How long have you been off caffeine for?
3.5, 4 years.
3.5, 4 years, yeah.
I found it really affected and increased anxiety in me. So I completely dropped it. But what it does is caffeine is a potent adenosine receptor impairer. So we have adenosine receptors in our brain. So as we were saying earlier, adenosine is the byproduct of ATP production and it forms in the brain. And then when in the absence of caffeine, throughout the day, it will build up, get the sleep pressure, and come 9, 11 o'clock at night, whenever it may be, you'll be like, God, I am exhausted. I'm just need to sleep. What caffeine does is it blocks the pathway for adenosine receptors to basically recept the adenosine that is in the brain. So it basically tells you, oh, I've got no adenosine in my brain. I'm awake, I'm alert. Hence why people take a caffeine to pep them up, or a Red Bull or something like that. So if you're going to have caffeine, have it in the morning when the sun rises. That's fine if you want to do that and it doesn't affect you from an anxiety perspective. But if you're drinking caffeine any later than about 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a non-shift worker, it can take up to 6 hours, depending on how fast you personally can metabolize coffee, for it to be cleared out. So what you're doing is you're blocking that adenosine build-up pathway. So your brain is thinking, oh, I was a little bit tired here. Now I'm not. Now what do I do? Where's the adenosine? And over time, you're going to really impair that system that is going to tell your body it's another mechanism of your body. Your brain tells your body that it's time to sleep, and the caffeine is going to impair that. So as a night shift worker, have that cup of coffee if you want to maybe kickstart you in the morning, but don't have any more throughout your shift, because you're going to struggle to sleep then later on in your, I guess, chosen nighttime. Yeah. So caffeine's a big one, I think, and it's a major issue because people don't realize it until they stop it, how much it's impacting their lives. And I think that, even if you're sleeping sound, I think just try and give up caffeine for a little bit. I mean, when I gave it up, I had 2 weeks of splitting headaches, really bad. I was drinking a lot. I was drinking 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day. Wow. It was a lot of coffee. But it was like someone was driving a knife through my head for 2 weeks, but I kept with it.
How does your energy feel now?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because I get my energy from the sun. Yeah. I get my cortisol dopamine hits with the sunrise. Yeah. And that is such a better hit than any cup of coffee or any caffeinated drink that I could have, because it's this sustained energy throughout the day. Yep. It's not this energy system that's going up and down like a disrupted cortisol cycle. It's just sustained. And if I feel like I need to increase my energy, I get outside. Get that sunlight into me, and it gives me that boost. It's like, boom, get into it. You know, gives me that alert sort of mental boost, rather than this artificial, right, we're going to pump you up for an hour and smash through, you know, whatever work or workout you need to do. And it just frustrates me now. I see people in the gym sipping their caffeine, and it's just like, man, if you just got outside in the morning, got in the gym a bit earlier, you're going to have that same energy, you know, and then you're not going to crash after your workout. You're going to be sustained throughout the day. So yeah, I think it's just one of the best things I've ever done, I think, is dropping caffeine. I just don't want to become reliant on anything in my life. And it's ultimately a stimulant and a drug. And I just hated the feeling of waking up in the morning and being like, oh, I need a cup of coffee. I need a drink. I need something to kickstart me into the day. And yeah, it was horrible for a couple of weeks to drop it. But after that, I don't crave it now. I'm just like, God, I need to get out in the sun. And it's so much better for you.
Yeah. And it's for free. And I think we're not doing it enough. We're not utilizing nature. You know, you talked about grounding, you talked about sunlight. I don't think we're utilizing just what we have around us enough. And I think if you look at workplaces, and I try and do it with my team as much as possible, is to get them working out, get them eating well, and get them out in nature, because it's going to help improve their performance just by the way they feel.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if they feel good and they feel happy and they come to work and they come pumped up, it's going to make them wanting to stay at the company a lot longer. And you know, one of the biggest things we have in business is keeping staff. And if we do the correct things around them and we put the correct parameters around them, we can have team members for a lot longer. And I think it's the same with shift work. Hospitals are hospitals, they're 24 hours. But if you can put, you know, the right parameters around them, you know, the performance and how they feel is going to be replicated on the service that they give out. So I think it's extremely important. I think finally I'll just go on to, because I think we're around the hour mark there, yeah.
I am. That's fine.
It's good. I mean, it's going free flowing.
It's really interesting.
I could go into so many places. But, you know, we touched on jet lag, and when I know when I go overseas, I didn't have this on my last trip. This was after that. So I know when I went to LA just recently, and then I went to Boise to see Chris, my eyes get really dry in an aeroplane.
Yeah.
And obviously the blue lights are very harsh on an aeroplane. You know, they darken the room, but they still got a bit of light on. Yes. And then you got the TV screen right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And then you got your tablets. And it seems like that blue light's the impact's far greater on an aeroplane. And so how important is it to make sure you got the right protocols when you're traveling?
Extremely important. I've written a blog actually on the website, The Ultimate Jet Lag Hack. So many people write about jet lag from a very generic standpoint, like do this, do that, and do something else and you'll be fine. Depends how many time zones you're traveling through, what direction you're traveling in, what you're doing in the build up to how you're traveling as well. And it's like you could record a whole podcast on jet lag. So I would definitely add in the show notes that blog, because you can look and go, right, I'm traveling east through that many time zones. This is what I need to do. Yeah. It's really comprehensive. Took me about 3 months to write.
That's on your website, that blog, yeah? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So it's a really good one.
We'll make sure we've got links to that, because I think it's very important.
Hugely. So I guess in a nutshell, and again, I would always encourage people to read this blog first, depending on how far they travel. And where they're going and what direction they're traveling in. But general rule of thumb is you need to be, prior to about a week prior to you leaving, you need to be trying to phase shift your circadian rhythm slowly into the time zone you're traveling in.
Okay.
So say the time zone is, like an 8-hour difference. You go to bed, say either an hour later or an hour earlier, depending on which way the time difference is, about a week before you go. So you're slowly moving the body into it. You're not going to shock it straight into that system, a new time zone. And then when you get on the plane, set your watch to the destination time zone immediately, and then see what time it is. If it's the bedtime or getting close to nighttime in that region you're traveling to, then you get the red blue blockers on, and you want to be sleeping when everyone's awake. Yep. And then if it's the daytime there, then you would just wear the yellows or the clear lenses to filter the blue light.
Yes.
So from a light perspective, that's what you need to do. Obviously, as you alluded to, every aircraft never goes completely black. So the 100% blackout sleep mask is important for sleeping as well. Get a blanket covered over you as well to protect the skin. There's a lot of EMF, solar radiation that's going to be present on aeroplanes. So one thing that everyone should do in terms of hacking inflammation is taking hydrogen, molecular hydrogen. So you can buy molecular hydrogen container where you can actually have diodes in the bottle that turns the water or adds specific H2 into the water, which will reduce inflammation. Plenty of studies that show that works. There's a company out there called Trussy. You can buy
heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, you can buy their hydrogen pills as well. You just plop them in water and drink those. I found that even if I'm coming down with something like a bit of a cold, if I take 4 of those in a day, it's gone.
Really?
It's incredible. I've
Trussy.
never known anything like it. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look into that.
So we take that when we fly. It's incredible, unbelievable stuff. It's not cheap,
What's
but
that? TRUSSI.
something like that, or SII, something like that.
Yeah.
What else can you do? So ideally, you want to be fasting because number one, the food's shit. And secondly, your body's not grounded. It's not. It's in a state of extremely high blood glucose levels when you fly because of the blue light and the EMF. It's just going to pump that high. So you want to be avoiding carbohydrate and ideally food. Yeah, that's the one there. Another good hack.
We're going to have to use that, Harry, when we go overseas.
Yeah.
You're onto it, eh? You got all the hacks.
I'm the worst with sleep, mate. You know that. I don't sleep at all.
He doesn't sleep.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
I'll tell you.
And I don't stop.
So Chris stayed at my house before, and I've been roomed with him, with Harry. But Chris stayed at my house 5 years ago. No word of a lie. He'd be up. He'd go to bed, and he'd be up almost every hour in the kitchen, in the fridge, looking for food.
Wow.
That's how bad Chris was. Like I've been with Chris on many occasions. Yeah. Harry's not far behind. They've and I think Chris's sleep's improving, but it's only like 35 minutes REM, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Which is,
I know. I think it was like 12 minutes before he was wearing our glasses.
12, but it's getting up there. But he was just the worst sleeper, and he just used to push himself, and really thinking that sleep doesn't matter. You sleep when you die.
Yeah.
And pretty much burning the candle on both ends. So those hacks, especially on an airplane, because I know with me, my eyes get really dry. And I know since I've been putting these on, even the evening if I'm watching TV, I don't feel that at all. Like it's it's been, a major beneficiary of looking at screens. I'm not the best. Even in this office, when I do a podcast, since I've been wearing these, it's felt so much better. Usually I'll be knocked out just because of all the lights. I don't know whether it was the laser treatment. I'm not too sure if that had a factor to do with it. It would have, yeah. So that creates even more sensitivity to the eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been again, there's been studies that have shown that people that have like LASIK surgery and to improve their vision become hypersensitive to blue light. Yeah. It's just basically you just got, and you can look at it in newborns as well, and kids are 90% more susceptible to blue light than adults because their eyes are so undamaged and clear and developing. And laser surgery ultimately does that. It's restoring your vision to what it was when you were a lot younger. So you just become in that kids bracket of like, wow, I'm ultra now sensitive to blue light, which is, it's good and bad in terms of artificial light. It's terrible. So you need to take extra precautions, but you're going to get more benefit from the sun, from being outside. So, if you just throw those sunglasses in the bin and be outside taking that light in for your eyes, you're just going to just get so much benefit from it, so much DC current. You're just going to be, ultra healthy. But obviously it comes with the flip side that you'll be more susceptible to this stuff. So you're doing the right thing with the yellow. Like the clears just wouldn't be enough for you.
No, that's awesome. Andy, I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's a lot of great hacks there.
Yes.
That are people that are doing night shift, people that are, traveling a lot. Obviously it makes a huge impact. People that are, in sporting teams. There's so many great things that you can take away. Even meal timing, frequency. fasting on aeroplanes, which we do.
Yeah.
You know, I do that all the time, and it does really have a great effect when you land on the other side of the world. But obviously, people can find you on BLUblox.
Yeah, they can.
Where else can they find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Facebook. Probably the biggest platform myself personally. So people can follow me. Just Andy Mant, MANT. We've got a group there that's called Light and Health that we've got about 5,500 members of, and that's a group where, you know, everyone interacts and asks questions. So a lot of people say, this is my light environment, what do I do? And we've got all the leading light people that are in there, and the quantum biologists and quantum physicists that can go on and answer these questions in very basic terms, which is really good. There's my personal Instagram as well. Just Google my name and you'll see me there. But that's typically not too much about light. But our Instagram, BLUblox Official, our Facebook, just type in BLUblox and it'll bring it up. We put a lot of educational content on there. Yeah. A lot of the academic studies that come out, we post in the Light and Health group. So that's where you probably want to be if you want to learn the actual academic studies and the science behind it. On the Facebook and Instagram, it's more like, you know, this is what blue light does. This is how you counteract it. Here are some free hacks to sort of get by and improve your life. So those are the best sort of places to go. And what we say is, if you're interested and serious about improving your light environment, we say it on every podcast, just message us, contact@blublox.com, because everyone's light environment is so different. So it's all very well being on a podcast and saying everyone needs these pairs of glasses for this situation. It's not true. Like we alluded to, there's night shift workers, there's night owls, there's people that, you know, perhaps have better energy in the mornings, but not so much at night. So just describe your light environment to us, and then we'll say, well, these are the free hacks you can do. These are the glasses you need, and this is how to wear them.
Even laser surgery.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So anything that you think could impact your light environment, tell us, and then we can come back to you and give you an individual plan of like, right, this is what you need to do, and these are the glasses you need to wear, and these are when you need to wear them.
And we forgot prescription glasses as well.
Yes. So we do those.
Do that as well.
Yeah, prescription, readers, and we also have a custom service as well, where if you have an old pair of sunglasses, because you shouldn't be wearing sunglasses at all, send those sunglasses to me in Perth, and we'll send them to our lab. They'll take out your polarized lenses, put our technology in, and we'll send them back to you.
Wow.
So you can have, like, we've done some Prada, Gucci, Fendi.
Data? I've got data. I'm going to send them to you.
Can do any.
So, Andy, can I just ask, with the prescription ones, so how does that work? Do they send you the prescription?
Yeah, so when you order on the website, there's an option to choose non-prescription, prescription, and readers. If you select prescription, you'll be greeted with a box that you have to upload your script. So you can scan it in, send it to us, and we've got trained optical dispensers that can read that script, and we'll be in touch with you should they need any more information from it. But yeah, it typically takes a couple of weeks, and then you have your prescription glasses.
Does that go into the Black Friday special?
It does, yeah.
It does.
All of them do, yeah.
So you with the sunglasses, you polarize the sunglasses.
Well, you don't want to wear sunglasses.
No, I know, but what I'm saying, if you send them, that's what you guys do.
We'll take them out. We'll take the polarized lenses out. Yeah, throw them away or give them back to you if you want them. Yeah. And put our lenses in. Yeah. So we cut the lenses to go into your frames. We don't.
And these are purely sunglass lenses then?
No.
No.
So if someone has an old pair of sunglasses, we can turn them into blue blockers.
Blue blockers, okay.
So to wear inside, yeah. So we would dispose of.
So you're saying don't wear sunglasses outside?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need the light coming through your eyes to tell the time. If you're blocking frequencies of natural light coming through your eyes, you're not going to get the right message to the brain. So it scrambles your brain and your hormones. So there was a study that's been very hyped up, and it's an extremely good study. It shows that people that wear sunglasses during the day have a higher risk of developing sunburn, which can ultimately lead to skin cancer, because when you're blocking light during the day, and sunglasses do block a lot of blue light, not all of it, quite a lot of it, the message you're sending your brain is that it's nighttime and it's not daytime. And what's not present at nighttime that's present from the sun in the daytime? UV light. So your body can't process it and it can't manage it correctly. So you burn quicker, and you can lead to things like skin cancer.
So don't waste your money on sunglasses.
No, don't wear them at all. And as I mentioned earlier, you want high levels of DC electric current in your body. How do you form DC electric current? Yeah, you can ground yourself to the earth, but UV light needs to react with DHA in the eye to basically form DC electric current, UV light doesn't pass through sunglasses, so you can't create that. You can't create that light now, that energy. So you've got to caveat that as well. In so much it depends how much melanin you have in your eyes to how much UV light you can be exposed to safely. So I have blue eyes, which means I have very low melanin levels, and melanin is an absorber of UV. If you have brown eyes, no problem being outside in the sun as much as you need to be. Again, I need to caveat that with that if you don't watch the sunrise and you go outside in the middle of the day when UV is high, that's not good.
Okay.
You need to be out in the morning to prime your body and your eyes, your skin and your eyes, the melanin to be switched on. So yeah, you just got to be careful with that, I think. But again, you still don't want to be wearing sunglasses. So what we have as a mechanism in blue-eyed people to counteract the amount of UV going through is we have some muscles that are conveniently located in the eye that I won't even go into the science behind it because it's called squinting. We squint when we're out. We squint, and that reduces the amount of UV that goes through. And when we squint, we produce an ocular fluid that can actually help in the absorption of UV light as well. So nature has, and our biology has synced to allow us not to develop, issues that that the press have hyped up over the years, like, oh, you're going to get cataracts. Yeah, you probably will get cataracts if you're living in a mountain with a lot of snow and a lot of UV because you're so close to the sun. But people that are not wearing sunglasses and exposing themselves to sunlight during the day are not going to develop cataracts. This is a disease that is of high UV at high altitudes, not at these low altitudes. So yeah, people need to ditch the sunglasses.
Actually, after I heard one of your podcasts a couple of days ago, I do wear sunglasses, but I started taking them off in the morning. Yeah. But I'm going to do that more often now.
Yeah, ease yourself into it. I used to be the worst, and Katie will say this, that I couldn't go outside, even if it was overcast with no sun and raining without sunglasses on. I would just be squinting because I'd sensitized my eyes to artificial light, because artificial light is so intense. Sunlight is so intense compared to artificial light that I couldn't handle it because I was so used to the dim sort of light inside that every time I went outside, it was like my eyes were burning out. It was horrible. Yeah. But when I started managing artificial light, watching the sunrise and being outside, I never wear sunglasses now. I might squint a little bit if there's a bit of glare.
What are they, prescription glasses you're wearing right now?
No, these are just standard non-prescription.
Non-prescription.
So
they're BLUblox as well.
They are, yeah. They're the yellow.
The yellow. I can't tell what these are.
Yeah, you can't. Yours look clear as well.
What about contact lenses, Andy?
Yeah, so they're not good. No, and the reason they're not good is that in the ridiculousness of people bad-mouthing ultraviolet light, pretty much every contact lens now comes with a UV blocker inserted into it. So if you're wearing them outside, you're not allowing UV light to pass through your eyes. And that is going to be a big deal for people in the long run. You need UV light through the eyes, as we've said, for the DC side of things, but you need it massively in your skin as well.
Katie's one clear there? No, is it?
They're clear.
See, they look yellow to me because they're clear. Your ones look clear because I'm wearing yellow. You're wearing yellow. There you go.
Yours do yellow. So we got to not live in fear of UV, I think.
So for people that have, below average eyes, what do you recommend? Glasses?
Yeah, I would recommend glasses, but with. It's difficult because, like, when you're outside, you probably want to be sat down taking your glasses off, even if you can't see, just to allow that UV light to come through. Unfortunately, people that have got issues with their eyes now, for whatever reason, whether it be genetic or whether it be too much blue light exposure over a long period of time, have caused that damage. So it's hard to obviously hack around that. But what you need to do is you just need to ensure that every time you're around artificial light, that you're filtering that blue light down so you're not damaging and degrading your eyes even more. Right. We've had some people that have basically ordered prescription glasses from us, and they've come back 3 or 4 times within a year to get lower prescriptions because their eyesight's improving, because they're managing the blue light, they're getting outside and getting the UV and restorative infrared into their eyes, and it's making it better. So yeah, that's basically that in a nutshell.
Well, that was fascinating. Towards the end, there was more good stuff to come out there towards the end. But Andy, I just want to thank you. I'm going to put in our show notes where people can find you. So for our listeners, you can head over to muslimmindpodcast.com and you'll see all the show notes there. You can also go and check out all our links to our social pages. And we're going to have Andy on our social pages. Obviously, there was a lot of gold nuggets there, Andy. It was absolutely fascinating. I learned so much. But last thing, I got obviously a pair of Dita. What kind of lenses do I put in them? Yellow, red? What do you do?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, it's completely up to you. What colour you'd want in. You probably need a pair of reds if you haven't got them already.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Get some reds.
I'm going to get reds for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Andy. I want to thank you for joining us today. I know you came down from Perth. It was great having you in the studio. We definitely learnt a lot, and I can't wait for you guys to kick more goals. I'm sure you guys are, and thanks again. And the glasses have really helped me out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, and really, really honoured to be invited. And thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.